Hey everyone, welcome back to Weekend Stories. I'm your host, Leo, and today we're diving into a story about friendship, miscommunication, and how the smallest mistakes can sometimes challenge our relationships. In this episode, you'll hear from Mike and Jenny, two friends who had a bit of a misunderstanding over the weekend. As always, after their story, I'll be sharing my thoughts on what we can learn from it, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Let's get into it.
It was Saturday afternoon, and I was sitting at the park, waiting for Jenny. We had made plans earlier in the week to grab coffee. I'd just gotten back from a long business trip, and I was really looking forward to catching up. But after sitting there for about 20 minutes, I started to get a little anxious. I checked my phone, no messages, no missed calls. I figured maybe she was running late, so I waited. 30 minutes passed, still nothing. At that point, I started to wonder if she'd forgotten.
Meanwhile, I was at home, completely unaware that Mike was waiting for me. We had talked about meeting up, but somehow I got mixed up and thought we were meeting on Sunday, not Saturday. I was spending the day at home, running errands, and didn't even realize anything was wrong.
After waiting almost an hour, I felt frustrated. I get it, things happen, people forget, but I couldn't help feeling like I'd been stood up. I left the park and decided to head home. I wasn't sure if I should reach out first or wait to hear from her, but I was definitely upset.
Later that evening, I checked my phone and saw a message from Mike. It just said, "Hey, I waited at the park today. Did something come up?" That's when it hit me. I had completely forgotten about our Saturday plans and thought it was Sunday. I felt terrible.
She called me as soon as she saw the message. I could hear in her voice how bad she felt. I didn't know how to respond at first. Part of me wanted to be mad, but another part of me knew it was just an honest mistake.
I apologized right away. I told him I'd mixed up the days and that I didn't mean to leave him hanging. Mike's been such a good friend to me over the years, and I never want him to think I don't care about our plans.
After we talked, I realized it wasn't worth being angry over. We all mess up sometimes, and it's not like she did it on purpose. In the end, we rescheduled for Sunday, and everything was fine. But for a while there, I was definitely upset.
So, there we have it, a story about two friends, a simple mix-up, and how they handled it. It's the kind of thing that happens to all of us at some point. But as with most situations, how you handle the aftermath can make a big difference. Let's start with what went well in this story. First of all, Mike showed a lot of patience. Even though he was understandably frustrated, he didn't blow up or send an angry message. Instead, he calmly asked if something had come up. That's a great example of emotional control. Rather than reacting immediately, he gave Jenny the benefit of the doubt and allowed for the possibility that it was just a mistake. On Jenny's side, we see another positive trait, accountability. She owned up to her mistake right away. There were no excuses, no trying to downplay what happened, just an honest apology. It's so important in any relationship to take responsibility when we mess up, and Jenny did that perfectly. But, of course, there were also a few bumps in the road. The biggest issue here was the miscommunication. It's a reminder of how important it is to double-check plans. We live in a world where we're constantly juggling so many things at once, and it's easy for details to slip through the cracks. But a simple confirmation, like sending a message to check the day or time, could have avoided this whole situation. Another point worth mentioning is Mike's initial reaction. Even though he kept his cool in his message, he admitted that part of him was upset and wanted to stay mad. It's natural to feel that way when we're let down, but it's important to remember that holding on to that anger usually does more harm than good. In this case, Mike decided it wasn't worth it, and that was the right call. But it's something we should all be aware of in our own relationships. So, what's the takeaway here? For me, it's a reminder of how vital communication and understanding are in any friendship. It's easy to jump to conclusions when things don't go as planned, but it's much better to ask questions and give the other person a chance to explain. In this case, Mike didn't know what had happened, but instead of assuming the worst, he chose to reach out calmly. That's a great example of how to handle these kinds of situations. Jenny's immediate apology also teaches us something important. We all make mistakes, and when we do, the best thing we can do is take ownership of them. By apologizing and offering to make it right, Jenny showed that she valued her friendship with Mike. That's what being a good friend is all about, acknowledging when we mess up and doing what we can to fix it. Finally, it's worth mentioning how easily something like this could have spiraled into a bigger issue. Miscommunications happen all the time, but how we handle them determines whether they become serious problems or just minor bumps in the road. Mike and Jenny's friendship was strong enough to survive this, and that's because they communicated honestly and forgave each other quickly. And that's it for this episode of Weekend Stories. I hope today's story helped you reflect on the importance of communication and patience in our friendships. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment when plans fall through, but sometimes all it takes is a calm message or an honest apology to smooth things over. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed today's story. If you've got your own weekend story that you'd like to share, send it my way. I'd love to hear it and maybe even feature it in an upcoming episode. Until next time, take care, stay connected with your friends, and enjoy the weekend. I'm Leo, and this has been Weekend Stories. This version includes the name Leo for the host, along with the reflection and feedback after the story. Let me know if you need any adjustments.